Yeah, well, let's dig in. Hello, everybody. I'm David Cooks, and I tell you what, we know that paralysis can take on many forms. It can be physical like mine, or it can be psychological. Anything you put your mind to. And what we try to do is feature stories that go from difficult places to fulfilling purpose. What seems impossible can be done by you. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest, a third-generation pastor. He does consulting. He's in the music business. He's got an ear and eye for talent. It may knock you down, but don't let it stop you. You know what he's most proud of? Being a good husband, a good father, and a good son. That's the stuff that's really important to him.
There was a lot of learning I had to do. I had to understand that not everything that's vegan is necessarily healthy, and that's part of the education process. No meat, no dairy, right? Mm-hmm. Oreos aren't meat and they don't have any dairy in them. So you can eat a pack of Oreos and you're eating vegan. So it was understanding the vegan diet that was healthy for me. Got so much to give, a lot of life to live. You must go from paralysis to purpose.
Get your pen and paper out.
Yeah,
I'm taking notes.
Paralysis to purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paralysis to Purpose to Podcast. I'm your host, David Cook. Thanks for listening. Make sure you take time to share, like, and comment on this podcast. It not only helps me, but it helps someone else see it. I say this all the time, and I'm saying it again this week. I love what I do because I get to interview some of the most intriguing and inspiring people in the world. And today is no exception. This guy's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Let me get his bio. He is a third-generation pastor at Christian Faith Fellowship Church here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he also serves as the Chief Operating Officer. He recently started his own business called DJ Hines Enterprises, which I didn't know about. We have to talk about that, and operates several business ventures. I know that he's a businessman extraordinaire, so I can't wait to talk about some of that. He does consulting stuff. He's in the music business. He produces stuff like that. He's a talent. He's got an ear and eye for talent like no other. And he does a bunch of real estate and all that. But you know what he's most proud of? Being a good husband, a good father, and a good son. And when you talk to him, he doesn't care about all that other stuff I just said. That's the stuff that's really important to him. And so I'm just happy to have him on the podcast. So should I call you DJ? Should I call you Daryl?
Hey, DJ's good. I go by DJ.
He goes by DJ. DJ Hines, welcome to Paralysis to Purpose to Podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone knows me, you know me. Been, I don't know, it's 20 plus years at least since you have known our family. So it's amazing that I'm sitting here speaking to you as a grown man now, speaking to someone who's literally watched me grow up. So it's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, as we said before we got on today's podcast is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be more topical than it is DJ's personal journey, but we'll talk about some of that as well. So I'm really excited. He is also recognized as one of the top leaders in our community and is responsible for a lot of programs that help to give back to the community. And we're going to talk about the importance of giving back today and why he does that, because I do think it's important. But what really attracted me, what made me want to get DJ on the podcast is I know that he doesn't look it, but he turned 40 recently. And he had done on social media, he had done a 40 different writings or statements or quotes or whatever you want to call them for 40 days up to his birthday. And in one of those, he was talking about his health and his wellness journey. And we really haven't taken a lot of time on this podcast to talk about the importance of wellness. And so I wanted to get him on to talk about that, among other things. And so I think we'll start there. So DJ, I want you just to share a little bit about that wellness story, and then we can dive into some of the other areas within that.
Yeah, most definitely. It has been a journey, and I thought it's so important. Really, the 40 days was just me reflecting as I was getting closer to my 40th birthday, just reflecting on things that I've learned, lessons that have been a firm foundation for me. And one of the things really dealt with my health and my wellness. as a child and even growing up, I dealt with weight issues, just being a bit heavier than I should have been for my age. And some things helped out with that. That's really when I got involved with sports and football and basketball. And that kind of helped me manage my weight. But even going into adulthood, some of those same weight challenges I dealt with, and it started to affect my wellness in regards to like my cholesterol and things of that nature. And in my 30s, my doctors put me on a cholesterol medication just to keep my numbers at a healthy in a healthy space, because cholesterol can be connected to heart disease, and it's something that my dad has dealt with. My uncles have dealt with cholesterol, so there's that hereditary piece there also. So I was, as I again began to reflect on turning 40 real soon, I made a goal to come off of the medication before I turned 40. And I knew that was going to come with some pretty drastic changes. Now, the gym and eating healthy became a part of my lifestyle, became a part of my routine, but it wasn't enough to get me off of the medicine. So I decided to totally change my diet, and I went to a plant-based diet. And for those of you all who don't know, plant-based diets and vegan is like blown up over the past 5 years. But it's basically a meatless, dairyless diet. And I said, well, if this can bring about the change that I'm looking forward to, then I'll lock in and do it. And, discipline and consistency, that's not a real problem for me. So I was able to lock into it. And, I told my doctor, this is what I'm doing. And he started testing me more often to see if I was having progress. And I made tremendous progress. I sit here today off of medication, which is a huge blessing for me. And I continue to do the things because those numbers can start to creep up again, but I'm still on that plant-based diet. And even being on that diet, you still have to be conscious of what you eat. Even though it's meatless and dairyless, there are other things that hide in food that can still, put you in a position that you don't want to be in. So, that's a long story short, and it's a lot of, consistency in the gym, 5 days. If things go weird a week, I'm 4 days, but I'm in there, I'm up early, I'm a 4 a.m.er, and it's just a lifestyle for me now. It's not anything that, I'm doing for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days. This is how I live my life.
Well, let's go back you talked about in the 30s, you began to understand you needed to make some changes. Can we talk about the importance of going to the doctor and getting a checkup? You are a person of faith.
Yeah.
And I know that for some, they may view going to the doctors as a lack of faith or something like that. Can you talk about the importance, especially as a Black male, of going to the doctor and getting things checked out? Because that's not one of the things that, unfortunately, is, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say popular, but it doesn't happen enough within our community.
Yeah, I have to give my wife kudos. When we got married, she was a huge advocate of me going to the doctor consistently, down to even making those yearly appointments for me. And, it's interesting when we talk about not going to the doctor and that being, I'm a church kid, so I've heard it all when it comes down to faith. And, I understand the scripture. It calls for us to trust God for our healing. And even with that, I think that going to the doctors also requires faith. I remember someone saying, I'm not going to the doctor because I have faith. I said, okay, well, what happens if you slip on some ice and break your arm? Are you not going to go to the doctor so that they can cast you up and get you right and get your arm fixed up? God put doctors in the earth for us. So, I think that it's tremendously important that we take the opportunity to go to the doctor. It's not a lack of faith. I think it's more of a leap of faith to go to the doctor, so that we know so that we know what to trust God for. And, I've had my family members that dealt with all different types of sickness and disease, and not one of them said, well, I'm not going to go to the doctor because it expresses a lack of faith. So I think it's tremendously important, because not going to the doctor can put us in a position to live in ignorance about our own health and about our own wellness. And we need to know. If I didn't go to the doctor and have things checked, I wouldn't know that I had high cholesterol, because when you find out that you have high cholesterol, if you find that out, it's too late, because now you have a life-threatening disease that started off with high cholesterol. So, I had to know where I was, and because I felt, you don't feel any side effects from cholesterol, it's like you're living a normal life. I was shocked that I was dealing with that, because I thought I was healthy. But the reality of the fact is that I had some more work to do. So I encourage, my friends, yo, go to the doctor, get checked out, go to the dentist, get your mouth checked, go and get your eyes checked. My wife is really the reason why I became so consistent with getting checked. And it's really been life-changing for me.
Well, you said something, because when I read it, I've known you, and like you say, you're in the gym, you're working out. I mean, you were fit, you were in shape. There was nothing that I could see that would have led me to believe that you had any sort of physical challenge that you were dealing with. And it goes to the whole thing about, if all you see is what you see, you're probably not seeing enough. Exactly. And so you have to get a little bit deeper with that. Let's talk about your diet, because it's interesting. You talked about, how you went to a plant-based diet, and what was that transition like for you? I don't know what your diet was like before.
No, that's a really good question, because it was a transition, and everyone assumes that. Well, I won't say everyone. Most people that I've spoken to that asked me about going vegan, they assume that I jumped in it cold turkey, and it wasn't. My diet before was highly carnivorous. Is that a word?
It is now.
I mean, David, you got to understand, man. Like, I am a true foodie. There aren't many foods that I won't try. Most types of proteins, most types of seafood, if they served it in a restaurant, even if it was something a little more exotic, that made me want to try it even more, because I love to explore foods. So, I ate a lot of meat every day, maybe 2 to 3 times a day. I ate meat, mostly with every meal. Breakfast, I'm gonna have some bacon. Lunch, I'm probably gonna have some chicken on my salad. Dinner, I love the lamb chops. I ate big meat eater. So when it was time to transition, there was a book that I read that really, because I wanted to make sure that I had some education. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure that I had an understanding of what this lifestyle really meant. So I read a book, and it was a quick, easy read. It was called The Happy Vegan by Russell Simmons. And the reason I chose that book was because I wanted to hear from a Black man's perspective. I wanted to hear from someone who grew up eating like me, fried chicken, collard greens with the, ham hock in there. And, I wanted to hear from somebody that I could relate to from a cultural standpoint, and relate to, like, he ate just like me. We're on the same page. He can tell me how he did it. And after reading that book and getting the education, my mind was set that this is the lifestyle that I want to live. So what I did was, the January of 2021, I dropped meat completely. And then February, I started to replace a meal with a vegan meal. So whether it be breakfast one day, dinner another day, every day in February, I started to replace one of my meals with a plant-based meal because I wanted to understand how to eat from a vegan standpoint. I wanted to understand what I liked, what I didn't like. And I knew that trying to jump into 3 meals a day right away wasn't going to work. And also what that did, David, was my wife, it gave her the opportunity to transition with me, not saying that she went vegan, but she cooks for me, and it gave her time to understand, well, how am I going to cook for my husband now? I've been making his favorite steaks and baked chicken. I've been making this for almost 16 years now. So it was a transition for both of us. My kids and her, they still eat a normal diet, but she'll still make us a vegan meal for me, which has been a huge blessing. But that's how we did it. January, I went no meat. February, I replaced the meal. And then March, I went full blown. So I tell people to transition into it. And I'll be a year next week, whenever March begins, I'll be a year. But it was a transition, and that's how I went about doing it.
Well, what's interesting, one of the things that I speak on with companies and whoever else is, they ask me, how do I deal with what I deal with? And I said, it's just one moment at a time.
Yes.
I don't try to do the whole day in 5 minutes. I try to master each moment. And it sounds like you, what a wise way to do that, to transition a meal a day for a while and to do that versus, like you said, I mean, I thought for sure because you're so disciplined that I thought for sure you just dropped it and said, hey, let's go vegan.
Yeah. I wish I could have done it like that, but I knew that in order for it to be a real sustainable change, I had to transition because there was a lot of learning I had to do. I had to understand that not everything that's vegan is necessarily healthy, and that's part of the education process. Can
you talk about that a little bit? Because that's an interesting statement. I know earlier you said you had to find out that there were some things that were unhealthy within in the vegan world. And I'm not a vegan. Let's put it out there. I don't eat a lot of meat. I'm surprised though how much meat people actually eat. I don't eat that much meat. We eat a lot of fish. And we'll have 2 or 3 meals a week without meat, just because. But the transition. So I always wonder, like, is it processed? Is it not processed? I'm a gardener, so I can go out and get my kale and my greens from the garden and the green beans, and I just literally from the garden to the kitchen table.
Yeah, and that's clean eating.
Yeah. So when you said you had to learn what was unhealthy about it, help us.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's really, when you start to think about it, it becomes very simple. So no meat, no dairy, right? Mm-hmm. Oreos aren't meat and they don't have any dairy in them. So you can eat a pack of Oreos and you're eating vegan. Another example, and I don't want to throw too many brands out there, but potato chips, potato chips are potatoes, oil, and salt, so you can eat a big bag of potato chips and it's vegan. So it was understanding the vegan diet that was healthy for me. And there's certain fats that I had to avoid that run those cholesterol numbers up. Even coconut oil, coconut oil is high in saturated fat. Some brands will label it as healthy because it's not butter. Right. So finding and understanding, like, that's considered vegan, but it's not necessarily healthy for me to eat. And that took time to get the education, because if you get the education, then it's something that you can really live and do over time, as opposed to, I'm gonna just go vegan this week, like some people do, which is cool, or I'm gonna go vegan this month. But taking 2 months to educate through reading and, like I said, and just asking a lot of questions for people who've done this. Shout out to my buddy Wesley McVicker. He was a tremendous resource for me. His life was changed as a result of going vegan. He opened up a restaurant in Houston. I was totally vegan. I mean, he looks 10 years younger. And he gave me a lot of education on the oils to use, the oils not to use, and that whole thing. So it was a process in understanding that it is a meatless burger or a meatless hot dog or a meatless this, but it's processed food.
Yes.
And there's certain things that they put in processed food that's not necessarily healthy. It's not meat. but do I still want to eat that? So, I'm really into the whole foods, like you said, like right out the garden. I like to be able to, read my ingredients in under 10 seconds of what I'm eating. Past 10 seconds is you reading too long now.
well, getting yourself educated is so important. Because in anything in life, there's no telling where you will go with one, but without an education, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
And so you can find yourself being an uneducated, unhealthy person thinking you're doing the right thing. That's just
exactly. And anything you jump into, anything, whether it be a new sport, whether it be a new business venture, whether it be a new diet, whatever it is, you got to do the work. You got to get a podcast. You got to get educated. And that's one of the biggest things I always tell, young entrepreneurs is, it's cool that you want to do it. Vision is amazing. Creativity is amazing. And talent is amazing. And a lot of people move on vision, on creativity, and on talent, but then they don't get the education part. And that's why you find a lot of young people who end up in bad deals because they didn't learn in the space. And of course, it takes time, but you will always get a return on that time that you invested into anything. So I knew for myself personally that I had to put the time in to get the education so that I could do something that was sustainable.
Wow. Well, before we take a quick break, do you ever cheat? Do you ever have like a lamb chop or anything?
You know what? I haven't cheated with any meat. I have with some fish, particularly like on vacation. It can be challenging to eat when you're on like a resort or something. They're not trying to cater to a vegan. You know what I mean? So, that was another thing Wesley taught me. He taught me how to cheat. Like when it's necessary, he's like, sometimes you're going to have to eat some fish just so you can eat. Here are the types of fish that you want to stay away from. Here are the types that you want to eat. So again, it's that part of the education and knowing that you live in a real world that's catering to people who eat very differently than you do and understanding like, okay, I don't really have any other options, so I'm going to choose my best options. But no, I haven't had any chicken or lamb. I haven't had anything.
And that is just, it's interesting. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that, but your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure. And what I mean by that is if you have it, then you can handle it. I may not be able to because it's not mine, but if you have it, you got that. And that's so
that's the word. I swore up and down that I could never do vegan. This was years ago. I met a vegan in LA. His name was Don. He had been doing it for 30 years or something like that. And I'm like, man, I don't see how you do it. Like I swore up and down I couldn't do it until I changed my confession to I'm going to do this. And that's when it became real. At the vegan that I spoke of is Magic Johnson's driver.
Okay.
When I was in it was Magic Johnson driver. He's run like 15 marathons after the age of 50. This guy he's a machine.
Well, we'll take a quick break here. When we come back, I just want to talk about perspective, perseverance, partnership, some other things you're doing that are equally as impressive as what you've done with this vegan thing. I mean, kudos to you, bro.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Think about it. We'll be right back after this short break.
We hope you're enjoying Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Paralysis to Purpose for more updates. Also, check out David's website at davidcookspeaks.com to learn more about his mission and purchase his book, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose.
Well, welcome back to Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast with our guest, DJ Hines. And DJ, I want to shift gears a little bit this half and talk about some of the initiatives that you are involved with. I really want to start with your passion to give back to the community. So let's start with that. First of all, why is it so important to you to give back?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, I just think it has a lot to do with the way my parents raised us and really emphasizing the importance to give. I have a funny story. I know that I don't know if you all watch and remember Chuck E. Cheese. I think it may have been renamed to Showbiz, but anyhow, we used to go to Chuck E. Cheese a lot as kids. And one time, my brother, who was probably 5 or 6 at the time, maybe 4 or 5, we were young. He ran back up to my mom and he said, "Mom, I ran out of offering. Can you give me some more offering?" So that he didn't call it tokens, he called it offering. So that just speaks to how we were raised at a young age to give an offering, to give to those who are in need. So it has a lot to do with that. And, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's an adult, he will not depart from it. So it was a huge part of my training coming up. And even today, I'm passionate about giving. I'm a firm believer that our responsibility as people of God, a huge responsibility for us is to give. And whether that means giving your time, giving of your resources, giving of your intellectual capital, but to find ways to always give. So I launched outreach effort called We Give Milwaukee, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. And what I found was that a lot of the organizations in the city who are doing a fantastic job, they're kind of focused on one thing or two things. And I wanted We Give to really diversify the way that we give. So I didn't want to box us into just giving food or just giving clothes or just giving educational tools to children. We do those things, but We Give is open to giving to some of the disparities in our community that sometimes go unnoticed. For example, our children in the community, the number one cause of death for children in our community is drowning. And I know a lot of people don't know that, but one thing that We Give did one year was partnered with a couple of swim schools and gave away swim lessons to children. We want to make sure that as children are going to school, sometimes parents don't know that they're challenged in their ability to see the chalkboard and to see the instruction. So we did free eye exams one year and free glasses another year. We've given away furniture for people who have an apartment but can't furnish it. We've given away vehicles. We just gave away our first 2 cars for our Wheels to Success program because Milwaukee, if you don't live like on a bus line or near a bus line, transportation is necessary to get to work on a daily basis and to get your kids to school. We really need a car in the city of Milwaukee, unless you live in downtown and you can walk or bike everywhere. But so we were able to launch a program, partner with an amazing philanthropist who underwrote the program for us, and we were able to bless 2 people with vehicles, and that's something that will be ongoing. So We Give is just an opportunity for us to address some of the disparities in our community and give in very unique ways. And I love it. Our team loves it. And we appreciate the opportunity to impact the community that way.
Wow. Yeah, those are great. I mean, and when you start talking about doing it differently but solving a problem.
Absolutely.
So someone has a job, but they can't get there. So you help with transportation. Kids are having trouble seeing, you give them glasses. So that's very practical. And how fulfilling is that? Like what's the best story you could tell of someone that received something and that is so memorable to you?
Yeah, I mean, they're all very special, but I think most recently we had an opportunity, like I just said, to give away a couple of cars. But what was so touching about this particular give, the gentleman, there was an application process and that whole thing, and we had a team to go through that. But this particular gentleman, he's in his 50s, been working his entire life, has a family, and when he was selected, the team was very passionate about, this is our person, because there's a lot of people to sift through, but they were passionate about this particular gentleman. And we did a quick interview the day he received the car, and he was blown away. And something he said touched everyone in the room. He said, "This is the first time I've ever owned a car." Wow. Just think about that. He said, "This is the first time he's ever owned a car," a man in his 50s. So just to have that kind of life-changing impact, that is life-changing, to not have to depend on, he was doing Lyft most recently, but not to have to depend on other means of transportations, but to be able to get up and go outside and get in your own vehicle and do what it is that you have to do to accomplish that day. That was extremely touching. There were tears in the room and everything. We were really, really happy.
Yeah, well, that's great. I tell you what, the scripture declares, give and it shall be given back to you. And more blessed to give than receive. And there's a blessing on both sides, but boy, giving is really something that I believe in also. You also have a new website.
Yes.
And a couple of things that people twisted your arm to finally get you to do, because you are so laid back about everything. Tell us about your business, your new website. What do you do? I know
Absolutely.
people. You remember in on Martin. I don't know if you're old enough.
Yeah, Tommy, come on, man. I know every word from every episode. Don't even try it, David. I'm not that young. I know every word from every episode.
And he would always say, "Tommy, what do you do?"
You ain't got no job. Well, I've been running the operations of our ministry, our organization, for the past 10 years now as the chief operations officer. But, it's interesting. I'm 40 years old. I know I don't look like it. You don't even have to say it. But I've taken a few kicks at the can over the years. And even fresh out of college, I started a business in marketing. It was called Creative Spurts. And really, our focus was small and medium businesses in our city. And we did branding. And this was during the website boom. So we were designing websites, and we provided services for some athletes. Michael Red was one of our first premier athlete clients. We work with just a few more. I won't go down the line, but anyhow, that was kind of like I got my feet wet into the world of marketing. And as a result of that, all of us, myself, Brandon Williams and Mike Shank Jr., we were the three guys who got together to start this, and our talents were exposed as a result of this. So that opened up doors for opportunities for all of us to go on and do other things. I went into music and started managing artists. Actually went on to executive produce my dad's album that received several nominations for Stellar Awards. So I was able to start to maneuver into the music world, and one thing led to another. And I just started getting these opportunities to do different things and to start to put more tools in my belt. And I was brought on to do some consulting at the University of Wisconsin. And as a result of that, other businesses, companies, corporations reached out for me to do some consulting there. So it's been an interesting kind of a mixture of all of these different spaces that I've had the opportunity to maneuver in. And I'm like, okay, God, you've allowed me to do some really fun, neat things, but how do I position myself to continue to do this? Because I believe that this is something that you would have for me to do. And that's when DJ Hines Enterprises was born. And really, it's an entity that takes a lot of the experiences that I've had, the experience that I've had in the world of business, and offer it to the marketplace. So, I've my wife, she's my number one cheerleader, and she was really pushing me to do a website, and, because I'm a great promoter of others, a terrible promoter of myself. And that's, I don't know, it's weird, but that is not weird. I'm the same way.
I'd rather have you tell me I'm good than me tell you I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. It seems less than humble, but it's something that's necessary. So I launched my website, and basically, again, it just talks a little bit about my experience, shows a few of the people that I've had the opportunity to work with, and then offers my services. So it's DJHines.com. Pretty simple, DJHines.com. So y'all go check it out.
We still don't know what you do, but
listen, man, I say if you tell me what needs to be done, 9 times out of 10, I can do it.
Well, so and that's what it does sound like. It sounds like all of your gifts and talents, whatever they are, they're transferable to so many different arenas, and there's a lesson in that. There's a lesson in not being pigeonholed and boxed in. Take your gift, because I believe your gift will manifest in whatever arena you're in.
Absolutely.
And therein lies the beauty of a gift opening a door. So congratulations.
Yeah, I just tell people, I'm a businessman, and if business knocks on my door, it's 9 times out of 10, I can do my part.
There you go.
Yeah.
You mentioned music for a moment, and I know that you've been very successful in that as well, and that your son is like a beat master or something.
I tell you, man, he's incredible. He really is.
Let's talk about being a father, because I know how important that is to you, a father and a husband, on the scale of everything that you do. I know that, I'll let you say it, but I think that's like super, 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 super important for you.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience to be a dad. And, the number one thing that being a father has opened my eyes to, on a tremendous level, is really how God sees us as his children. And it really helped me to better understand my relationship with God as a child of God. So, the things that we would think that, man, God is never going to get over the fact that I did that, or God is not happy with the fact that I said that, or God, when you think about when your child makes a mistake, or your child doesn't listen the first time, the second time, the third time, and it can become disobedient. When you think about that, and you think as a father, how you respond to that, my response is, I'm going to do whatever I can to continue to develop this child, to make him better, to make her better. I'm going to continue to pour into this child. I'm never giving up on my children, so it really showed me, oh, wow, this is how God thinks about me, as I think about how I address my children as a father. I think it's a huge responsibility. And that's really how I see being a dad. Now, I enjoy my kids. We have fun, we laugh, but I know that I'm responsible to make sure that they, first of all, love God. Secondly, that they are equipped to do whatever it is God has called them to do. And lastly, I want them to be able to take what they saw in Nina and I as parents and apply it when they become parents as well. I have a son and 2 daughters. Trace, he's Daryl Hines III. He's 12. My middle daughter is Chloe. She's 9. And my youngest is 5. And she is Sedona. And I always tell people, like I talk to my brother a lot about this. I always tell people that when my children become adults and they become of age, the things that they didn't necessarily enjoy as children, the fact that wake up, first thing you want to do is read something. Don't get on that iPad. Don't, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. The things that as kids are like, here we go again. I want them to be able to look back and say, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that my parents pushed me to be everything that God has called me to be. I appreciate the fact that my parents trained me to be an obedient child, So I know the sacrifice now of being, the not so fun dad all the time. I believe that sacrifice will reap a great harvest later as my children become adults. Wow. So I love being a dad. It's the greatest job I've ever had.
Yeah, it's interesting as you talked about the relationship of God to us, and God is always about redemption consistently. Yeah. Everything is about redemption, and so there's never in His mind the thought of loss. He's always, trying to increase and redeem. So that's very interesting. I don't want to compare your children at all, but I do want to talk about your son.
Absolutely,
because this music thing is part of your family. For people who don't know, you can take go and Google DJ's dad and some of the songs he's written and all that kind of stuff. And I think DJ sings sometime, but he doesn't call that his gifting. Come on.
No, it's not.
But he can hear and he can see talent.
I can hear and see for sure.
And then his son, though, how did he begin to do this? He's a big time like music guy, and he's 12.
He's 12, and he's very talented. And I told Nina, I don't want us to be the parents that blindly say our kids are the best because they're our kids. Like we really, like if we say our kids are the best, it's because they're the best. And if they're growing, then we'll say that they're growing. So, and we agreed to that because we didn't want it, because, parents would be like, oh, you got the 10th place prize. Here you go. And it's like 10th place. they give trophies for 10th place. But no, we just always wanted to be very sober minded. But with Trace, he has a real gift, and he's really talented. And it started, he was about 2. And it's, you hear people tell these stories, but it's so true. He was about 2 years old, and we noticed that he started beating on things, and would just be on the couch with his little play drumsticks and making like rhythmic beats. And I'm like, man, I think he may have the music thing, because, it's a gift. Again, it's a gift. My dad had it. My dad played several instruments, wrote music, sings still to this day. So it's an honest gift. I tell people it skipped over me and went to the next Daryl Hines. So my son, he has it. And at 2 years old, we got him his first little mini drum set. My dad set him down by the piano, and he was able to keep a consistent beat at 2 years old, which is unbelievable. So my dad's like, yeah, he's got it. So we put him in drum lessons. We put him in drum lessons at 3. We put him in piano lessons at 5. And he's been playing ever since he was 2. And a few years ago, he started making little beats on his iPad. And I was like, son, you made this? You made this? He's like, yeah, Dad, I made it, like on GarageBand, right?
Right.
He made it, and it was amazing. So we started investing into, better assets where he could actually make production quality beats. And now he's online, and it's funny. Sometimes he'll be out and they're like, oh, that's Trace the producer. That's his tag on Instagram, Trace the producer. And he's like, Dad, do I got fans? I'm like, I think you got a few fans, son. So he's passionate about it. He tries to make music every day. He wants to score film. That's his ultimate goal. And man, it's exciting. It's exciting. And my middle daughter, Chloe, she's my student, straight A's across the board, loves to read. She hasn't determined exactly what she wants to do yet, but I know one thing: if she wants to go on and get her master's and her PhD and her PPhD, she'll be able to do that, because she's a brilliant student. And then my youngest, that's my CEO, that's my business girl. She's very sharp. She pays attention. She's quick on her answers, smart with her questions. So, I always tell Nina she's going to take over DJ Hines Enterprises one day, because she's my... Yeah,
when she's 10. She's 10. That's what your kids do.
Right.
Like, what?
She's my CEO. So I got my musician, I got my student, and I got my CEO.
Wow, that is really good stuff. One of the things that you said, I think is great for all parents to understand, is to invest in your children. And you said as soon as you realized there was a gift there, you begin to invest in the development of that gift. And that's for all of your children. And I think sometimes, like you said, and if it's not the gift that we want,
right,
that I want, that's not the point. The point is the gift, and to invest in that gift. It's really
absolutely. And I'll be honest, man, just sharing an intimate moment when Nina became pregnant, one of the consistent prayers that we had, and this was every time she became pregnant, was, Lord, show us their gift so that we can do our part to pray over it and to invest in it so that it can continue to flourish and be everything that God has called it to be. So you're exactly right. And I noticed you picked up on that. As soon as we saw it, that's when we started making that investment into Trace's music career.
Yeah, we recently posted a podcast with Mario J. Radford. And I don't know if you know Mario, but he's a young pastor in Kentucky.
Okay.
And he talked about his tagline is more than a preacher, because he did a bunch of things. And he talked about as a kid, he was always drawing outside the lines. And they were trying to get him to draw in the lines, but his creativeness was outside the lines. And once they realized that is where he was supposed to be, then the arts and music and all these things began to flourish in his life, because he just wasn't drawing in the lines. And I think that's just an amazing thing. So
that is, man. And as a parent, to be keen to that, I think it's a part. And, it's a blessing to be able to invest into your child's gift. And that goes back to we give. That's other things that we want to do. We want to be able to identify children in our community who are gifted, particularly in the arts. I'm passionate about the arts. We want to identify children who are talented in the arts and in film and even in tech, and put them in positions to thrive and succeed, because everyone doesn't have the opportunity to make that investment. They see it, but they don't know what to do with it, and even, in my dad's family, a lot of musical talent, but they didn't always have the resources to invest into that gift. So we want to be able to, as an effort, to see our children in our community thrive and succeed. We want to create opportunity to say, hey, you like to dance? Or you think you can play this? Or you think you can sing? Or you want to figure out how to code? And, you're into making video games and that whole thing. We want to be able to invest into children that way as well.
Wow. We're almost done, but before we get to having you talk about perspective, perseverance, and partnerships, I want to ask you one other question. Because you know what, sometimes people think, you're a pastor, your kids are doing great in school and everything, that life is just a bowl of cherries and you never have to deal with anything. What would you describe as your most difficult or darkest moment of something that you've had to deal with?
Yeah. And it's, that's a really good question. And for me personally, man, like when challenging moments come, I really try to do a good job of understanding that it's a moment and that it will pass, and buckling down and doing whatever is necessary to get through that situation. But I will say, up to this point, my most challenging time was really as a son, when my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And, my relationship with my father is unique because not only is he's my father, he's my pastor, and he's my boss. So we have a very interesting dynamic when it comes down to our relationship. And because he's all three of those things to me all of the time, it causes us to spend a lot of time together. So if we're not going out as father, son, playing golf, we're in the office meeting as boss, son. And also, in church, when I'm sitting in church, I'm listening to my pastor minister to me. So we spend a lot of time together, and to see my dad in his weakest moment as his son, as an adult son, to where I can relate more so than ever of what he was going through at that time. It was hard. It was really, really hard. Just not seeing the superhero that I grew up seeing in his full capacity and being able to do all the things that I'm so accustomed to him doing, and traveling and preaching the word, and here at our church here, handling business and going in the pulpit, and his world. I saw his world start to change because he was fighting this cancer. And God is so faithful. He's cancer free now, of course, and he's back on the road, and he's got his cape back on, and he's doing his thing. But that was a huge time of development for me as well. I probably more in 2019 than ever before. I've ministered. My brother and I, we really had to buckle down and come together to keep, and my mother, of course, come together to keep things going in his absence. So that was a huge growth period for me. And I just think that it's so amazing how God used, his weakest moment to grow us and make us stronger, not only as people of God, but in ministry as well. But that to this point would have been probably one of the hardest times for me as a son, to see my dad go through that.
Wow. Well, look, I told you I was going to take a lot of your time, but you talk a lot. So
Am I talking too? I'm trying to give you full answers, man. That's a big question.
I know it's a good question. It's a good question. So,
you asked really in-depth questions.
Well, thank you.
It's like preaching. You can't get into the woods and leave people there. You got to take them in and bring them out.
Well, we're about to close. I'm on my first close now.
Okay, you're on the first close. All right, we got two more then.
Two more. So, on all of our guests on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, I just believe that paralysis is a difficult place that you may be in, and purpose is when you get to the other side of that thing and are able to serve people. And I'm convinced that there are three things that are consistent in everybody's journey that are important: perspective, perseverance, and partnerships. And I want to talk to you, or give you the opportunity rather, to tell me what comes to mind when you hear each of these words and what kind of impact they've had on you. And we'll start with perspective.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep it brief.
Look, you can talk as long as you want.
I think first of all, that's such a thoughtful question. I think that perspective is everything. I can look at my journey, even in business, and I remember for some time I was pitching television shows, and got no, and even doing other business opportunities and continuing to hear no. And the perspective goes one or two ways: that I'm not good enough for this. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't have the ideas. I don't have the wherewithal to get this done. That's one perspective. The other perspective is, this is my story. These are building blocks. I'm taking away something from every opportunity, and I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm building something, because buildings are laid a brick at a time. And, what good is it for your first pitch or your second pitch or your third pitch to all be yeses? What are you building? What testimony do you have? Now I'm at the point now to where I can tell people, I understand the no, and here's how you look at the no. So I think perspective is everything, man. It's one person, one person may say the glass is half full, one may say that the glass is half empty, but I think your perspective increases your faith when you have the proper perspective that lines up with the word of God. The Bible says you are more than a conqueror. You are the head and not the tail. You are above and not beneath. Do you always feel like more than a conqueror? Do you always feel like the head? Do you always feel you don't feel those things? But the word gives us God's vision, God's perspective to us, and that's how we line our perspectives up. So perspective is everything.
Wow. And I believe that no is the gateway to yes.
Amen.
I really believe that. And because somebody is assigned to help me fulfill this thing that I have. Period. And so your no is not a no to me. It's a yes to somebody else. And
exactly,
therein lies your perspective. Let's talk about perseverance. What do you think about that?
Perseverance, I think everyone listening knows that it's the will to keep going. You know, I've seen it. I've seen my parents persevere through so many difficult times, so many challenging times. I mean, starting a ministry and growing it from 4 to the thousands over 35 years, you have to imagine what it takes to keep going. Perseverance is the difference between you and the next person, who's willing to persevere, who's willing to say, you know what, I've been knocked upside the head 10 times, but I'm ready for the 11th one because I'm not going to stop. And there's this, you probably all seen this meme where there's a guy digging for this diamond, and he's been digging and digging and digging, and he gave up. And little did he know, the next strike into the dirt, the diamond was there. So I think that perseverance is the key to getting to the diamond. And the diamond is the goal, the dream, your destiny. So it's paramount that we continue to persevere.
And lastly, is our last close. Well, no, it's not the last close yet because I got to close. But partnerships, you're a collaborative person, and we haven't talked about the boards that you chair and other things that you do here in Milwaukee, because you're not going to tell us that because you're like Tommy on Martin. Well, I work. So
do a little something here and there.
Yeah, I do a little something here.
Right.
Why is partnership so important? Why has it been so important to you?
Yeah, I think that I call it cross-sectional collaboration, where you can take 3, 4, 2 different entities in different spaces and come together to reach a common goal. It has been paramount for the work that we do because the needs of people, they're infinite. People continue to need resources, access, opportunities, whatever the case may be. There's always a need to be met. And as the church and as a nonprofit organization, we have a responsibility to help meet the needs of people. Government can't do it all alone. And private entities can't do it all alone. So we have to come together. So we have to reach out to government and say, hey, what resources do you have? We have to reach out to the private sector and say, what resources do you have for us to come together and collaborate to meet this common goal? So for me, partnerships are everything. I think the greatest things done in the world are done as a result of partnerships, because there's not one side or one entity that has everything that's needed to do something great. So partnerships are huge. A huge part of my job here at the church is to build strategic partnerships, to build bridges from our organization into other organizations, to say, hey, we have this constituency of individuals, not only at the church, but in the northwest side of Milwaukee. Here are the needs we're trying to meet. How can we work together? Because you have the resources. And it's a beautiful thing when we can come together and make things happen for the success of the people that we serve.
But if people want to follow you,
yes,
and don't just say, you can find me. where can they follow you?
Yes. Okay. On Instagram, it's real easy. DJ Hines. Twitter, guess what? DJ Hines. And Facebook, DJ Hines. LinkedIn, DJ Hines. Online, djhines.com. Can you tell I have a background in branding? So it's real easy. And I look forward to hearing from some of you all. I hope that there's something that everyone was able to take away from this conversation. And I appreciate you doing this, man. I know there are many people you could have reached out to. I know this is part 2. We had to, since I talk so much, he had to break it up he had to break it up into 2 conversations.
Oh my God. Well, no, let me tell the audience what really happened.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I was going to cover you. You
don't have to. Let me tell you.
All right.
Because these things do happen. So I'm going back and I'm getting ready to put this episode together and I'm editing, and I didn't have a second half. And so apparently I did not hit the record button for the second half. And so I wore the same thing because I know about branding.
Yeah.
He's wearing different stuff.
I can't even recall what I was going to ask you this morning. I was like, what did I wear? But now they know that this was a 2-part segment. And, it's funny, when we finished and you hit the record to stop it, I thought I heard it say now recording, but I was like, no, I'm sure he caught it. But yeah, it was
you know what?
Zoom snafu. It happens.
It happens. And so I appreciate your time. I know you got a lot going on. And it's an honor to have you as a guest. I mean, I reach out to a lot of people, and the people we reach out to, we feel they have something impactful to say. And you have. So thank you for being here. You've been a great guest. And this is David Cooks reminding you, until next time on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Thanks for tuning in to Paralysis to Purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paralysis to Purpose on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To purchase his book, visit davidcookspeaks.com. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with David Cooks.
I suffer from an autoimmune that just took a drastic toll. And I couldn't walk more than 10 feet, 5 feet. Going upstairs was almost impossible in some cases. I couldn't even open my mouth to talk at one point in time. What happens if you can't do what you love no more?
Next time on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, Dave welcomes Linnell Ramey.
But what I found was I had created a circle of people who knew me and understood me. And so without me having to say what was needed, they were able to pour into. Now, if your circle is not allowing you to be an individual, they're going to pour into you what they think you need to have from them versus what they know you as an individual need.
Paralysis to purpose.